Good afternoon, and welcome to the old meeting house. Before we begin, a couple of housekeeping items. There are bathrooms in the parish house, which is that way, and there's also nursery care upstairs in the parish house, which is being staffed by a couple of our wonderful young people, and it won't disturb us a bit if a parent wants to take a child to the nursery now or at any time during the service. We're gathered here today to remember Thomas James Curchin, to celebrate the gift that was his life, and to commend him to God's loving care. I would guess that within this gathering there's a wide range of beliefs about the meaning and purpose of life and the mystery of death. Some of us may believe, as Christian faith assures us, that our journey continues beyond the conclusion of our earthly lives, while others may believe that the uniqueness that is each one of us ends with our death. Whatever way we believe, one way in which we can be sure that our lives continue after our death is in the memories of those who knew and loved us. Each of you has had experiences of Tom that brought you here today to honor him. Each of you has a story about how he touched your life. These are yours to keep. They will be with you always. We'll hear some of those stories in this service, and I'm sure others will be shared at the reception in the parish house, where Tom's family hopes that you will join them after the service. Through this sharing, we will celebrate who Tom was and what he gave to his family, his friends, his community, and the world. So welcome. We're glad you are here. And let's join together now to create a sacred and loving space, a space in which we truly listen deeply, welcome tears and laughter, and hold each other in the warm embrace of our arms and of our hearts. We'll begin our remembrance with Tom's wife, Sarah.
Wow. Thank you for being here. And thank you to the old meeting house and all our family and communities for embracing us with your love and support. I'm going to make a wild guess and assume that, wow, surprise faces. This is really great. This is great. I'm going to make a wild guess and assume that almost everyone here loved Tom Curchin and is missing him deeply. And your love is palpable. I can feel it. Tom and I and our children have been carried by this love for many months and long before ALS. This love for Tom was reciprocal. Tom had a bottomless well of love and kindness and empathy for all those humans, dogs, and cats that he interacted with. Listening was a special gift of his which he offered to all of us, including me as his talkative wife and our children on a daily basis. When you were in his presence, you felt truly seen and heard. Tom trusted and honored who you were, which made you feel both empowered and at peace with yourself. You knew you could count on him to support and fight for you. I know that because he stayed late many, many a night at work to do just that for his patients. As a friend's mother used to say, thank God for Tom Curchin. Tom had an encyclopedic brain and memory which served his patients well, with his grasp of facts and studies, but annoyingly, it also led him to correct all my stories and even Jeopardy contestants. Also, Tom made you laugh and share stories, so being with him was truly entertaining. whether you were hiking with him, walking in the neighborhood, on a phone call, or with him as a patient. Now I want to share with you some things that Tom loved. He loved going to bed and waking up very early and with precision timing. He trusted and, oops, I made a mistake here. Sorry. Oh, no, Emma, this is your fault. She was my printer.
Is it not the right?
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Do you want me to
No,
get
it's
the
fine.
phone?
No, it's fine. It's fine. I can't do anything without my family, so I'm very grateful to Emma. As I said in one of my emails, she was my catcher of all things I dropped. He loved to read the New York Times, the New Yorker magazine, 7 Days, Vermont Digger, and the Times Argus. He devoured books and loved using the Kellogg Hubbard Library. He loved not spending money. He loved to bike and hike and Nordic ski up very steep hills and mountains. He loved raisin bran and broccoli and lasagna and all sweets. He loved his parents and his siblings and their families and their perfect childhood on the Jersey Shore. He loved music, Bruce Springsteen, the Talking Heads, and all types of jazz, like the Kamasi Washington performance at the Burlington Jazz Fest with all our kids. Tom loved hearing Emma play the trumpet. He loved his friendships from all parts of his life. He loved his work family, his medical practice, his partners, staff, and fellow practitioners. And as he said in his obituary, he was grateful for each and every patient he had and the lives they shared with him. He regretted not being able to say goodbye to each of them. He loved to win at word games, so much so that he would make up words, insisting they were dictionary worthy. He loved nature, wild and horticultural, especially flowers. Alpine wildflowers, zinnias, morning glories, which started to bloom the day he died. Mexican tithonias were just a few. He loved his corgis. I wish I could have brought them. Baxter, Caleb, Tasha, and Sparky. And he played countless hours of ball with them. And most of all, he loved his children, Will, Alice, Emma, their partners Sean and Kara, and his grandson Callum, who brought him immense joy and pride every day of his life as a father. Thank you.
Please join now in singing hymn number 472, Precious Lord, Take My Hand. Please be seated.
Hello, everyone. I'm Linda, Tom's little sister. Many of you might know me as Lenny, since that's what he called me. Today I come to speak for our family of origin, many of whom are right here with us today. Our parents, Thelma and Ken, and our brother, Larry, all of whom have passed, and the 3 remaining siblings, Judy, Ken, and myself, and our families. And when I speak of Tom's family of origin, I have to also go a little bit further than our nuclear family, because we grew up in a large, boisterous tangle of aunts and uncles and cousins, and this family was also important to Tom and who he became. So speaking for Tom's family of origin, I want to thank all of you, not only for showing up here today to celebrate him, but also for helping him build this incredibly happy and meaningful life every day since he purposefully and gleefully broke free from our little town in New Jersey and set into the world to see what he could find and whom he could become. Sarah mentioned Bruce Springsteen. I always think of him when I hear Born to Run. Many of you might know that Tom was the middle child in our family of 5 kids. You might also run across something called middle child syndrome. According to this psychological theory, middle children often have personalities that are overshadowed by their siblings. The older ones are strong-willed, and the younger ones gobble up all their parents' attention. And this might make the remaining middle child somewhere in between, making them maybe confused, dulled down, quiet. I think everyone in this room knows that those words didn't apply to Tom at all. There was never a less confused, a less dulled down, or quiet person in the world. Tom took the opportunity of less parental control and more sibling white noise to develop himself into who he wanted to be, not who anyone wanted him to be. In preparing for these remarks, I asked my siblings to share some of their fondest memories of Tom, and I realized that the common ones reflect the emergence of this very unique and unusual person, and I wanted to share a few of them. First, all 3 of us have very strong memories of Tom and his pets. We came from a rather poor family without any room or money for adopting non-human family members, but somehow, by force of will, you know he had that strong will, and saving up his own money through aggressively having several paper routes all at the same time, Tom managed to acquire an assortment of ants, fish, chickens, parakeets, bunnies, hamsters, gerbils, guinea pigs, and then finally, his dream of all dreams, a dog. A puppy was at the top of every single letter to Santa, and the pages of the D volume of the World Book Encyclopedia that illustrated various breeds were completely torn out, grimy, and full of tape, reflecting hours of his yearning and his planning. It comes as no surprise to me, and probably to you, that this desire led him to, and this joy of animals, especially dogs, especially corgis, drew him to Vermont and to Snow Hill Farm. We also have strong memories of Tom as a very voracious reader. We remember that even amid the chaos of 7 people and all those pets in a tiny house, you could still find Tom on the couch or on his bed in the small room he shared with his two brothers, immersed in a book, seemingly unaware of all that was swirling around him. Most of us know that this love of books carried through his entire life. One of my last conversations with Tom included discussion of a recent favorite book. Not surprisingly, we both loved North Woods by Daniel Mason, both loving that the house in that book became an immortal character, much in the same way we thought of the house in which we grew up, 163. My own memory of Tom and books draws me away from our shared memories of him to my own very personal reflections of Tom as a wonderfully invested older brother. I have a very clear and dear memory that has stuck with me after all these years of a rainy afternoon in the dining room of our house in New Jersey. I was perhaps 6, which would have made him 13. Tom was trying to finish a book, and I was yammering on about something to him because he was my favorite person and he was supposed to listen to me. I remember him stopping and looking at me, and I thought he might get angry. But instead, he gathered his breath and said, "You know, Linny, the last few pages of a book are very, very important to a person." When you see someone reading the last few pages, the kindest thing you can do is be quiet. Now, do you want me to read these last few pages out loud to you? And so I got to hear the last few pages of Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five, read by my brother. I don't know why this, of all memories, stays with me. Somehow it resonated with me that Tom was a special person who read neat books, and that I was incredibly lucky to find him in my own family, in my own house, and I was going to learn all that I could from him throughout life. This was a very smart decision on my part. I got to do all sorts of things with Tom that a small child would not normally get to do, like multiple trips to New York City to explore museums, walk the neighborhoods, eat ethnic foods, and be the only small child at a viewing of The Who's rock opera Tommy. It was a blast being his little sister. I recently read through a big stack of letters and art emblazoned postcards Tom sent to me over the years, penned in his own special brand of hieroglyphic handwriting that often curled up the sides of notebook paper or postcards in an attempt to get in one last observation, one last thought, one last exclamation point-infused profession of support and love. And so I'll leave you with some of Tom's words that I think are particularly representative of who he was. These are from a card he gave to me upon my graduation from medical school, and as I followed his footsteps into daunting family medicine residency training. On the front is a gorgeous sunflower, and inside, after some congratulatory greetings, Tom says this: "Shut the door each day and let the world become quiet around you and learn something new. To me, it is always one of the simplest and sweetest moments of the day." I will forever be grateful that Tom was and will forever be my big brother. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alice, Tom's middle child. I'm so happy to see many new faces and many faces that have been supporting me here since I was very small. There is a very disorienting nature to this loss. For my dad, the slow loss of his body. For us, the loss of many more years of life and love with him. The loss of a person that emanated so much joy. I feel unrooted, as I'm sure many of you do, to have lost someone that was so steadfast, witty, and caring. I got to know my dad in a very different way this last year. Even though ALS took so much from us, it did give us the opportunity to really slow down with each other. With his diagnosis, his bucket list changed dramatically. Previously, it had held hiking the peaks of the world, auditing law school, learning a foreign language. This switched to deepening his relationships, having time to read books, spending time with his corgis. I saw his vulnerable side that was softened by illness. He opened up about how he was processing this unbelievable circumstance, and we heard his reflections on a life very well lived. Through many visits with old friends, I learned about his young, silly self who had had a life-changing acid trip, who listened to a lot of talking heads, and who once rode a bus from Rutland, Vermont to San Francisco just to turn around and drive back 2 days later, all for the fun of the journey. I heard countless stories from you, his community, about how he had come through in a time of need, offered you life-changing advice, or altered your lives in some profound way. All things he has offered me countless times. He had a really special way of navigating the chaos and uncertainty of life. While he was in the ICU last month, I was lucky enough to share with him that I was newly pregnant, so surprise for those who I haven't shared that with yet. As we both quietly said goodbye to a would-be future of laughing together and me muddling my way through parenthood, he began to share some of his parenting wisdom. He shared that he simply accepted each of us kids for who we are, separate of himself, separate from our siblings. He sought to never tell us what to do, but rather guide us to discover what we wanted for ourselves. I cannot imagine a better role model in life. Will, Emma, and I have so much of him in us. We shared with him his love of the mountains, of medicine, of biking, of dogs, and of a good story. He gave us a competitive spirit and that desire to save a buck. He taught me to become friends with my siblings, along with how to treat friends like family. He guided us with honesty and kindness every day and taught us to trust in our decisions and love that journey. I wanted to share a little window into the time just before he died. We cocooned together as a family for 3 weeks. It was the first time we'd had that much time together for such a prolonged period in almost 2 decades. At times, it felt almost unbearable to watch him struggle and try to predict what was coming. All of us tried to cram stories, questions, thoughts that we previously had hoped would span at least 20 or more years together. Those last days also hold some of my fondest memories with my family, and even my dad, facing the end, shared it was one of the best times of his life. Though unable to speak, he furiously wrote to us throughout the day, and one of the very last things he wrote was, "Now back to living, exercise, art, laughter, and return of hope for the future. Do not get stuck here in misery. Please plan stuff that brings joy. Also, do you want my slippers? They're really good. Oh, and I also have a new rain jacket, Columbia. It's still available if anyone needs one." He took life by the horns, never settled for the prescribed path forward. From pausing college to bike across the country, to moving a toddler and a newborn to American Samoa, and then settling in rural Vermont, my parents' life here a far cry from those suburbs of New Jersey. My dad never wanted a relaxing vacation. He was always set on the next adventure, the next mountain, the next goal. He was happiest with risks deep in dirt or kneading dough. He loved learning more about people, whether they be family, friends, patients, or fellow grocery shoppers. He had a fundamental belief in the goodness of people, regardless of our differences. During our last weeks, as people hugged him goodbye, he started telling them, "I'll be in touch." I'm sure many of you heard this, yeah. At first, I thought this was his final jab, a quick laugh about him haunting us. But the more I heard it, the more comfort I started to get thinking about the ways that he will be reaching out to all of us. So we came up with a few ways we may feel him visiting. When you get a lick from your dog, when you walk in the woods in spring and the smell of fresh mud and new growth hits your nostrils, when you reach the top of Spruce Mountain and the sky expands around you, when you feel like you're at an impasse in life and the right choice lays itself out in front of you, when your legs are burning as you bike up Snow Hill, but you get that little energy boost that helps you to the top, when you find yourself with a rapt crowd as you give the perfect punchline to a good story, or when you make up a word in Boggle and it's magically a rare Celtic word that you can verify in the dictionary. I feel him here with us today.
Please join me in saying the words of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Hi, I'm Susie Adams, and this is Tony Seesfeld. In 1977, I cooked up a harebrained scheme to spend the summer riding bicycles from Providence, Rhode Island, to San Francisco, where I'm from. I'd flown across the country and wanted to see what was between the coasts. I knew Tom through a Brown University food co-op. I asked him if he'd like to accompany me and my then boyfriend, Tony, one of 5 kids from Fairhaven, New Jersey. Tom was a scholarship student who hadn't traveled far from home. Plus, he was always game for an adventure. We had no maps, no tent, and no idea that we would be riding against the wind, which blows west to east. It took us 53 days to go 4,500 miles. Somehow, we averaged 90 miles a day. We slept in a laundromat, on the front steps of a church, in a ranger station on an Indian reservation, in a Montana junkyard. Tom slept in a Cadillac.
Did you want to sit there? Just a few other moments from the trip. It's July 1st. We're in South Dakota. The only safe road that goes east-west across South Dakota at that time is Interstate 90. That day, the headwinds were blowing at 30 miles an hour. We bicycled for 5 hours and made 21 miles. When we got to a truck stop, Susie started to cry. I fell asleep, and Tom went from Winnebago to Winnebago to find us a ride across South Dakota. Ever practical. We got that ride to the Badlands. That evening, we walked our bicycles. We were allowed to sleep in the Badlands. We had to be a half a mile off the road. We walked our bikes off the road, slept. It was beautiful. Next morning, walked back to the roads. Our tires are filled with cactus spine punctures. Tom would later say he knew the risk of that, so had carried his bicycle and had no punctures. I actually don't recall that that was true. But Tom stuck out his tongue, and we hitched a ride to Rapid City, South Dakota to buy new inner tubes. In Rapid City, this is all happening in a day, Tom was stopped by a police officer for running a red light. After a strained conversation between them, the officer told Tom to get out of town. I'm not entirely sure what happened, but Tom assured us that the officer was out of line. We headed north through the Black Hills Forest and up into Montana. For that trip, Tom bought himself a Raleigh road bike. Double-butted, Campanola parts. I think he bought it less than 2 weeks before the bicycle trip. He loved that bike. He would invent all sorts of trials to demonstrate its superiority. I lost count of the number of times we competed to see how far our bicycles could coast. Tom fell twice off that bike. Once was in western New York in the rainstorm. His glasses were wet, but he was determined to ride. His wheel caught a seam in the road, and he fell into oncoming traffic. It was a scary moment. The second time he fell was in eastern Washington, in an agricultural area dominated by Jolly Green Giant signs, when an extra water bottle launched from the back of Susie's bicycle landed on the road in front of his bicycle, knocking him over the handlebars. He got up, he was scraped, but he refused to clean his scrapes with the water out of the irrigation. He was afraid of fertilizer or chemicals or worse. So he used the water out of the water bottle. Just two highlights, and I have some props here which you're not going to be able to see, but we'll have them down below. So 2 moments. One, we crossed the Mississippi on the bridge that connects Savannah, Illinois with Sabula, Iowa. I don't know if you can see the smile on Tom's face as we were on the Mississippi River. That night, we spent the night in a campground beset by mosquitoes. And Tom hated mosquitoes as much as they loved him. He claimed to have spent the night under a faucet to keep those bugs away. The second was when we reached the beach at Lincoln City, Oregon, which is where we first saw the Pacific Ocean. We had officially made it across the U.S. It was an extraordinary moment. It was an extraordinary adventure. Tom was an extraordinary friend and fellow traveler for 47 years.
The bike trip changed us, but what didn't change was the way Tom had with us, and I think with everyone in his life. I was trying to think of how to sum Tom up for this memorial, and I flashed on Coach Taylor in Friday Night Lights. Clear eyes, full heart, can't lose.
Hi, everyone. I don't have any words prepared, but I'm going to play. And yeah, my parents supported our hobbies like no other parents, and I can carry music with me, and that's a big gift, so I guess I should play. Okay.
20 years ago, an extraordinary man stood in this pulpit and delivered a Thanksgiving homily about the spiritual gift for which he is most thankful. It was, he said, learning about the joy Samoans have when somebody has died, and he contrasted that with the view of death in our culture. That man was my friend and 12th cousin, Tom Curchin. A couple weeks later, at a party at Court and Ginny's, I joked when Tom came through the door, "The parson has arrived." And he went through some gesticulations, including a cross, and gave me a blessing. I thanked him and asked him to do it again. It was that fine balance on a razor's edge between profound philosophy and a delightful sense of humor, which I will always remember. He embraced Christianity, Buddhism, and Judaism, and with his deep listening, made everyone feel as if he was their special friend. When Tom, Sarah, William, and Alice moved into the house next door, where my grandparents used to live, we quickly became friends. Soon our families were celebrating the birth of Emma, followed by sharing Easter and Thanksgiving dinners, holidays, and birthdays. Tom reduced everyone to tears with hilarious stories of being a doctor in Samoa. It wasn't just my family who saw Tom as a special friend, but everyone in our neighborhood. Whether it was neighborhood parties, cross-country skiing, full moon walks, hiking up mountains, or setting up a Celtic stone circle above his house with Michael Duane, Tom was part of the glue which held our neighborhood together. When I faced health crises, he was always there for support. With my first serious cancer in my small intestine, he spent nearly half an hour on the phone with me, teaching me fart jokes in preparation for my recovery time at Dartmouth. He pointed out the particular ones I should tell the nurses. Afterwards, he encouraged me to send him the pathology report so he could download the latest research articles for me to have in hand when I met with my oncologist. Did you all notice how he seemed to be a bit of a deity? When he was painting his house or mowing the lawn, there was always the urge to stop and take in Tom, his stories, his laugh, his smile. He was also a prophet, bringing attention to the looming shortage of doctors, wondering why the press was so afraid of exposing the insurance companies and private equity firms. Nobody listened, and now we see the collapse of our healthcare system. He also warned of the dangers of fascism in the coming election and wished he could be present at Kamala's inauguration should she win. Of course, Tom squelched my worship of him by informing me he was an SOB. I protested, but he insisted, and he reminded me that he was the son of a barber. Actually, his father was a barber, his grandfather was a barber, his great-grandfather was a barber, and his great-great-grandfather was a barber. But that's another story. But behind every beloved public figure, there's a partner to hold everything together, and for Tom, that was Sarah. They were the perfect balance, yin and yang. In the end, people couldn't get enough of him, and it was Sarah who had to take on the difficult role of gatekeeper. Over the last decade or so, we developed a ritual of appearing at each other's houses and singing a birthday song with funny lyrics concocted to go with popular tunes. This last year, I penned some doggerel to accompany a song I planned to compose but never finished. I showed it to Tom, and he cried. I asked if it was that bad. And he said, no, it's beautiful. Since he liked it, I will conclude with this poem. Called it Dr. Tom. The full moon shines on snow. A different season sparks, a gleam in rainbow drops of dew. Across the green, a corgi barks. Like the moon, the snow, the sun, your care, a gentle force, flows over and through our lives, healing, guiding us on our course. As a doctor, you listened and cared, giving us hope that we might heal. And when recovery was not to be, we saw you grieve, we saw you feel. You always stuck up for the little guy and warned about the corporate plan, squeezing out doctors, drugs, and tests to pad the pockets of the CEO man. You kicked out the drug peddlers, kept them from your patients' files. You fought against the insurance meddlers, kept up with clinical trials. And now the seasons circle round. The corgi barks at the rising moon. Snow gives way to glistening grass and melts in the soft air of June. So when the night reveals a star to show a path that's true, we'll cherish the care you gave to us and send our love to you.
Hi, it's Tom. That simple introductory sentence, along with the warmth of his smile and the strength of his handshake, was all I needed to know when meeting Tom for the first time 27 years ago. He was standing on the doorstep of our home on a Sunday morning, arriving to discuss the formation of a new medical practice. Such negotiations can be lengthy. Ours lasted a half a cup of coffee. Having dispensed with the weightiest issues first, such as our favorite dog breeds, the latest books we've read, and recent travel histories, we moved on to lighter topics, including schedules, staffing models, vacation coverage, and practice sites. 26 years rolled by, each one marked by his emailing me a copy of our official hospital photo, taken as young 30-somethings, announcing the opening of our practice in January of 1998. And then sadness descended as I began to witness the changes in Tom by late 2022, with confirmation of our worst fears arriving in May of the following year. My despondency deepened as the pace of his illness accelerated and proved overwhelming with his passing. But rather than surrender to the enveloping sadness, I choose to focus on my good fortune at having Tom by my side as we navigated together the challenges of our ever-changing professional environment. I could not for a moment imagine anyone else but Tom by my side on this voyage, and so I am endlessly grateful. Grateful for his profound intelligence and wise consultations. Grateful for his moral compass, always pointing in the direction of doing the right thing. Grateful for his love of candy corn, granting me license to indulge myself in my love of peanut M&Ms. Grateful for his fairness and sense of team play when resolving countless work-related challenges. Grateful for his sense of humor. When I asked him where he found joy as his illness advanced, he responded with a familiar glint in his eye. I love spending time reading, visiting with my friends, being with my family, and time spent with my dogs. A brief pause followed, and then he said, and not necessarily in that order. And I am grateful for his humanity, empathy, and kindness. But mostly, I'm grateful for those words he uttered at our first meeting. For over the years, I came to know what it meant to be Tom. And so I close by saying, goodbye, Tom. It's Bram. Thank you for being you. I miss you. I love you. And I remain forever grateful for our partnership and friendship through so many years and so many experiences. I could not have done this without you.
Please stand as you are able and join in singing hymn number 488, Be Still My Soul. Please be seated.
I'd just like to first start by saying thank you from my entire family and from my dad for being here. We are very grateful. I'm Will. I'm Tom's son. I feel grateful to be here with you all in this place. As Andy highlighted, in Tom's final days he wrote, I'm Christian, but culturally I'm Jewish, being from New Jersey. and spiritually I'm Buddhist because I believe in rebirth. If my memories of this place serve me, the accepting culture of the old meeting house surely fits such a unique, multi-dimensional concept of faith. In the spring of 23, my wife Kara and I called my parents, and we told them we were expecting Sarah's much-anticipated first grandchild. The phone call's intense joy was unfortunately followed by an equally intense sadness, as Dad shared his fearful suspicion that he had ALS. The new life of our baby and Dad's inevitable decline created a deafening contrast. When graced with a squirming little being of your own, you inevitably think about fatherhood. Fortunately, I had a great role model. Dad was a behind-the-scenes parent. He would foster inquisitive thought and allow you to come to your own conclusions. He supported all interests and went to many sporting events, even though I know he did not care about team sports. He always made time and space. He was also a wonderful grandfather. When his and Callum's eyes met, they sparkled with the unique bond that exists only between grandparent and grandchild. Dad worked harder than most. Being a family doctor in a small community is a unique thing. You know everything about everyone. You share many joys, but you also carry the heavy burden of the pains of the community. He served all people with attentive patience. I know many people in this room have reached out to him for advice during their own vulnerable moments. He always had time and always provided comfort. He was many people's most trusted person. Central Vermont Medical Center posted his obituary earlier this week on Facebook. Dad loved Facebook, by the way. I was filled with gratitude reading the many, many touching messages of appreciation for the kind care and friendship he gave so openly for so many years. He was a fabulous doctor and role model for our own healthcare journeys. He made medicine approachable and kind. His number one hobby was chores. He hated them, as my mom would say. He would always joke that he didn't need hobbies because he had an old house. We did lots of chores, even on his last day of life. Chores make the world go round, Dad would say. One of his beloved self-inflicted chore hobbies was gardening. He loved the slow burn of seasonal learning and the transformative process. He and Mom's garden was always a great representation of their relationship. Her desire to let everything flourish, and his desire for a more ordered process. Dad had these brilliant breadseed poppies that grew against a backdrop of Mom's unbridled massive purple phlox. Mom's social exuberance contrasted Dad's measured, comforting presence. Their relationship was always additive and was always a beautiful balance. Nature was his communion. He loved riding his bike through the winding dirt kingdom of Calais, paddling among the glassy waters and loon calls of the Green River Reservoir, and gliding over smooth cross-country ski trails at the Highland Lodge. He was most at peace outside, and Vermont provided a spectacular place to spend his adult life. Dad's favorite mode of travel was hiking. The Camino, the Hoot Route, the John Muir Trail, White and Green Mountains, they were all favorite trails. When we were kids, he would coax us hiking with secret troll messages on birch bark that only he could read. He loved exploration, but I think he really just loved how extended exercise fosters long and winding conversation. He was a fantastic storyteller and had a wonderfully inquisitive mind. In September, bad luck plagued bad luck. Blood clots in his lungs put him in the ICU and brought the end within sight. This process brought waves of grief, but it also brought joy. We made morbid jokes about death, appeased Emma's game addiction with countless rounds of boggle, and made far too much applesauce. He got to cuddle his grandson and corgis, all while soaking up the most beautiful last days of summer. I'm proud to have witnessed Alice's medical knowledge and loving attention to detail, Emma's emotional and spiritual touch, and Mom's clear mind and loving presence in the face of such life-altering loss. Dad was proud and grateful. ALS was the thief of time, but I find solace in knowing how well he used the time he was given. Love came in many forms that final week. texts, phone calls, fresh eggs, and beautiful, many delicious hot meals. He passed on the final day of summer after a beautiful Vermont sunset to the sounds of heifer moves and crickets. I believe Dad's college roommate David Lewis said it best. His most outstanding trait was his innate generosity of spirit, a wonderful ability to welcome people and make them feel valued. So, do as Tom would do. Commune in nature, take a long walk with a friend, care for friends, family, and strangers, grow things, laugh, make up words and boggle, and go gently with the kindness in your heart. We'll miss you, Dad, and we love you.
The old meeting house and Tom's family invite you to join us in the parish house after the service for more storytelling and hopefully lots of hugs and laughter. I'm going to switch the order of the last hymn and the benediction. I will say the benediction after we hear the ringing of the bell so that we go out on a joyous and even a raucous note. Please rise now for the commendation. Tom, we love you, we miss you, we release you into the freedom of wind and sunshine and of rushing mountain streams, we let you go. Into the dance of the stars and the planets, we let you go. Into the Spirit's breath and the hands of the Maker, we let you go. Into your hands, loving God, we commend your servant Tom. Receive him into the arms of your mercy, into the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and into the company of the saints in light. Amen.
Sorry, I did not plan out the timing.
Gracious God, support us all the day long until the shadows lengthen and the evening comes and the busy world is hushed and the fever of life is over and our work is done. Then in your tender mercy grant us a safe lodging and a holy rest and peace at the last. Amen. The words for when all the saints go marching in are on the back of your bulletin. We hope you will sing loudly and with spirit.
We're not ready.
You're not ready yet? Okay. The family will leave the sanctuary first and form a receiving line beside the walk going down to the parish house to greet everyone as you leave. Please be seated while the family leaves, and then we'll all go out. Okay. And now we welcome everyone to greet the family and join in the reception.